Here we are talking about life and death. And it's normally something that's got so many associations, so much pre-programming, that I think it's absolutely amazing what Kahuna's doing, reprogramming and showing us a different way. And basically, your comment earlier about the title, with that this is not the truth about life and death, but about death and life, is leading us into many thoughts about this. So here we go. So Frank,
thank you so much.
Yeah, how does that get going?
Well, shall I share a little bit about why I want to turn the title around?
Yeah, sure.
So we had a preliminary call, Vanessa, Jeanette and myself, a couple of hours ago. And Jeanette was talking so much about her passion, you know, about how we create life, or not how, but that we create life. And I realized that, of course, the focus of the book, Kahuna, the Cat Who Didn't Die, is very much on that thing we call death. And so I really got this sense that the more we can be comfortable with the whole concept of death and experience it and consider it differently to the way that we've been taught, the more likely we are to have more life. So it seemed like a really good segue in was to change the title to The Truth About Death and Life. And, you know, I'm certainly learning something different from Kahuna, even though I've had that experience and have that consistent experience of his presence and his aliveness. I know that I haven't got to the point where I'm completely comfortable with that transitional thing that most of us call death. I know that I still have fears around my mum dying, and that I still have fears around my own death. So it's really interesting to own that and see what exploration might come out of that. But anyway, that's why I wanted to change the title to The Truth About Death and Life. And to one of the things that came through very strongly from Kahuna this morning, when I asked him what he wanted this call to be about, was I just got this sense of his excitement. And Jeanette used the word entertainment. And this idea that what if we approach this thing we call death with less trepidation, but more curiosity? And it was curiosity for me that allowed me to have my experience with Kahuna, prompted by Jeanette when she said those famous words to me: "You are lost in your grief. Next time you feel his loss, choose to feel his presence." And that was a milestone moment for me, because it has changed my life. It's changed the whole way that I am exploring life now. So yeah, I think I'd like to hand over and see where that goes next, really.
I'm struck by this emphasis on the word life, because we have such a dumbed down concept or experience of life. If we see death as a closed door, it's not a closed door, it's an open door. And we don't open the door because we don't go to the point of the exit, which is where we experience it, is in the pain or the apparent loss. And so my correct, or at least the way I describe those words normally, is put your attention on presence in the apparent absence of life. Put your attention on what is there in the apparent, because it's not real. And it's only what we love is real. And what do we really love? It's the life. And if we think of identity as being solely rooted in the body, it has to be in the body as well. But if we feel it's only in this body, and this body has gone, or this thing has gone, or this identity has gone, well, we can't actually access what it really is. We can access true identity, whether it's through the experience of loss, in apparent death, or in autism, or some of the other lovely things that you've been saying, Francesca. It's what do you identify with, and what is life? Life is that which contains everything that we can imagine. And what makes it real is love, your attention. And attention is love. So even though we put attention negatively sometimes, consciousness experiences it as love. So that's why it grows. So you put your attention on something you don't want and you get more of it. so what you got, the amazing choice that happens to someone who is really deeply surrendered. And Francesca knew. I mean, she knew all that already. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said it to her. I don't say it to anyone who's not ready. And Francesca was perfectly primed. She had it all already. So you just chose. And it isn't a question of choosing with mind. It's just, oh, okay. And it may not feel like anything. It may not have anything at all, because it's in the imagination still. But that's what we have to use. We have everything already. And we don't need to go on great big long courses or anything. We need to just be willing to explore. So I loved it when you wrote that book. I just loved it when you made the choice, because that's all this is necessary, is to make the choice to explore more than what this apparent reflection is that we get from other people, from our parents, from all sorts of other mirrors when we're little. It's not who we are. And we have to explore, inquire, find out who we are, and find that unlimited power. I'm still playing. I'm playing with it all the time. I don't know in my mind where it's going to go. But I love it that you've actually grounded it in this book. And everybody who hasn't read it has got to read it, because it's just so beautifully crafted and simple. And it's about the love. What you love is what defines our experience of life. If you don't love it, it disappears. If you love it and continue to love it, even when your mind is saying it's not there, your senses are saying it's no longer there, it's gone, I've buried it. It's not true. What is it that you are before this body that you live in, apparently? What are you before? I'm not saying what were you. What are you prior? Simple. Anyway, say more, Francesca, about your experience, because the experience, I'll tell you lots and lots of things, but if you haven't got a frame of reference, that's why people play games with me, to get a frame of reference, then it's so much theory and it's not innate, and it has to be coming from your innate, your own inquiry. So that's why I say people don't believe anything. Just try. Just do it. Just experiment. So,
it really is something I will never forget, because it was such a profound moment of experience. And you could have been talking to me for an hour about the theory of life and death and whatever, but it was those words that piqued my interest, the suggestion to feel his presence. And I couldn't get my head around that. It was like, but he's not here. He's very clearly not here. But what would happen if I did that? If I chose to sense that presence? And it was just the most extraordinary moment. And so, it wasn't this tiny little fleeting, like a glimpse. You might think, like sometimes I might think that I see a presence, for example, out of the corner of my eye, I might see something flit through my vision, peripheral vision, but then it's gone. I can't anchor into it anywhere, or rather I haven't anchored into it anywhere. But this sensation that I got when I accessed his presence, when I felt his presence, was completely overwhelming. It sort of filled me up, You know, it was like there was nowhere where that presence wasn't. Is probably the best way that I can describe it. And the sheer joy that erupted through my being was so completely opposite to the deep grief that I'd felt a fraction of a second before. I mean, I couldn't quite, like, logically, I can't go there. It's like one moment I was wanting to bawl my eyes out, and the next I had this sort of huge grin on my face, and I was laughing. And whenever I connect with that presence of Kahuna, I laugh. There's this joy and this humor, and he never seems to be serious. The connection that I have with him is always very light and mischievous and fun. It's just really great. And so even just talking about it like this, I can feel his presence so powerfully. It's like I sort of feel like it's his presence that makes this smile blossom, if that makes sense.
That's beautifully expressed. And you know what it is? When you said, I can feel his presence, my whole body lit up, the whole room lit up, everybody lit up. Because the presence that you have loved and defined, and that you do love and define in Kahuna, is the presence, is what we call life. You can call it God, you can call it the universe, you can call it truth, you can call it what you like. But it's the love and the attention and the focus that has enabled you and Kahuna to have this beautiful, amazing, I haven't got words, awesome relationship because of the love. Now, the presence is everywhere, all the time, in all of us. But it's that incredible love that you were experiencing the loss of, that you actually dared to go to the last place you knew him, which was in the loss, and there you found him. And that is the great open secret that everybody knows and feels in their heart. But because I don't know, for me, I loved it all my life, and I wanted to find the way to go there. And so my sound, and that's what's happening with you as well, everybody, when you absolutely know it, 1,000,000%, impossible, I'm not doubting it. I'm not saying that I'm living as that, because I'm still embodying it. But when I speak of that, there is a transmission. It's not personal, but it is embodied. And that's all of us. And all we have to do is to begin to look where it doesn't seem to be, to find that union of the opposites. That's what we talk about, and that's what they experience in alchemy, the union of the opposites. And I often give the analogy of electricity. You can put a positive wire and a negative one in a place of neutral, which is, for me, neutral is the heart, and what do you get? Power. And that's what lit you up. That is what is behind electricity. Electricity is just a little outpicturing of what you experience. And all I do is I do my best to describe the wonder of what I know and what I'm embodying more and more and more in my cells, that little piezoelectric spark that we all have in our cells. And my whole life is nothing but that. Just, it's a wonder. We do not need to be limited by anything, but the mind is like a glass ceiling. And I loved it when I read the first bit of your book in draft. I went, oh, yeah, she's got it. And that is unstoppable. Once it begins, it's unstoppable, Francesca, because you already knew it, but you didn't anchor it yet.
I knew it, but I didn't know it. But I remember going back to the year before when he was diabetic, and I was doing that unbelievable protocol with him. And you said something to me then about, I can't remember what you suggested, but it was probably something similar about feeling his health, or I can't remember the way that you did it, but I did exactly the same thing. Was every time I thought of him, you know, being a diabetic and being sick, I would tap into him, and I would get this not quite so enveloping energy, but I would feel this rush of life force through my body. And I used that, and then of course, you know, at the end of that month of that, he came out of diabetes. So it was that real sense. I sort of recognized it as a life force then, because he was still in his catsuit, you know, so I didn't have to think of it as his presence, because, you know, he was there with me. But it was a lesser energy. It wasn't quite so extraordinary, but it was like the forerunner of that. So I guess I'd had a little bit of exercising my ability, a little bit of practice,
but it's
at accessing that.
It's innate in all of us. So you already, and I knew that you knew when I said that to you, because the only people who come to play with us are people who are reflections of us, of what they read what I'm saying anyway. Otherwise, none of you would be here playing anyway. It's not that Jeanette, it's just the energy I call Kishori, because Kishori is the cutting edge, the littlest, the tiniest little bit. That's why it has to be doing nothing, the grass grows by itself, or doing nothing, the lightning strikes, you know, and we have to experiment with it, like all the people that have played with these games. They've experimented, and then bit by bit you begin to realize, oh, that's what I am. That's what I am. And circumstances stop distracting you. And you know, I was just over the moon, because I remember feeling it when I met you online. I knew that you knew anyway, but you didn't know that you knew, not fully anyway. But you do. You are it. Everybody is.
Yes, I just getting
like
really
a secret. We all know, but we don't. The mind, when it's very, very clever and very busy and very full of its importance, and I can do it. So I tell you a secret. The thing that got in my way, and what I'm playing with embodiment, is being trained as a naturopath and doing lots of things. And I have got to stop doing the things that I know to do that make me better, and go to the imagination or that life force. I get in my own way, or at least my mind and my history. And I'm sure that's the same with well, I know it is, because I've played with a lot of people. It's what you believe gets in the way.
I've got a message from Kahuna.
Come on, yes, tell.
I can't believe he's just given me this. You can take this with a pinch of salt, because I'm being given it with a pinch of salt. But he's explaining to me how incredibly powerful being curious is. And he said the way that you can tell that cats are the most evolved being is because they already have 9 lives, because they have such a high level of curiosity. And the fact that we've only got 1 is because we don't have so much curiosity. So we can just go out of this body after, you know, 1 real sort of exploration. But he's stating that they have 9 lives because they have this ultimate level of curiosity, which is a sign of an extremely evolved being.
Yes, they're like these break dancers or street. The cats are so amazingly flexible. They have bodies like babies do, and it's when we educate the curiosity out of our children that we create this carapace of history. But children, they aren't.
Well, I love it. When I was writing the article for Advantages of Age about like condensing the story of the Kahuna book into one article, and I didn't want to rewrite any of it, and I asked him what he wanted me to write, and so he gave me that article, and then I asked him if he had a specific message for those readers other than just what I'd written, And he said, yes. He said, it's this sense that people label cats as being aloof. But he said, then they're not aloof. What they're doing is expanding and expanding their awareness out and out and out so that they're everything. And so it's not about aloofness. It's about the fact that they are one with it all, with everything. And his suggestion was to become more cat-like. And I'm just getting that so powerfully, that it's not just that expansion of awareness, but it's that curiosity to go into, to explore the places that scare us. And the whole concept of death has to be, I guess, the scariest. It is for me anyway. So I can just see him like with his nose out and his tail up, and he's going, follow your nose and really get curious about this thing we call death.
And all the little things that interfere with the conscious direction, the things we go, oh, for goodness sake, why did I lose my keys? Or why did that happen? Or that shouldn't have. Those are the moments that you can be curious about. You know, perhaps we should change the saying that Jesus said, unless you become as little children, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. Unless you become more like cats. I'm more like a cat. You shall not enter the unlimited nature of the kingdom of heaven. And why did they say 9 lives? 9 is the number of power. 9. Because it's the ultimate number before you then go back into the wholeness, the one again. So 9 lives means they have unlimited lives. It's the Vedic number of absolute power. So,
well, I guess they would have to have unlimited lives, wouldn't they? If there's no such thing as death.
There isn't, no. But the way we see it, and the way, when I say we, I mean the way that our minds see it, at the moment, death is a reality. But do we love it? Do we go, oh, yummy, can't wait to die? Or I can't wait to eat that strawberry shortcake that someone has brought me for dinner with cream and walnuts and, you know, that yummy. No, you've got to love it. And you've got to love what you want. So you have to love life in the presence of what seems to be death. That's the trick, or that's the knack. Play with what does that mean? What does it feel like? So good listening to what anyone tells you, or what you read, or what someone else is doing. You have to know it through your own innate. And you are living intelligent life. Sorry, go on.
Are you saying that the next stage for me, because I don't think I can say honestly that I love death.
No,
I'm not
exactly
looking forward to it in the same way as I would that banana split. But is that something?
No. What I'm saying is that we got it. The mind has got it wrong. Unless you love something, absolutely, it won't continue. And if what you love is life, when you think about death, or when you perceive death, or when you perceive loss, and that you're going to have to find that little wellspring of joy, just like you spoke of it, how it floods you. That you have to know. What you hear here, if you're hearing with your mind, it's not going to serve you, except to remind you to go back and look. That's the only thing you can do, is create the condition or the invitation. The mind will create an invitation, but you have to put your attention there. You have to go, okay, I'm going to contemplate this and see. And in the midst of what seems to be absence, you will find there is only life, but only you can dare to do that. Like Francisco dared, you leapt. And that goes on and on, expanding.
I think it's really, really interesting, because if you hadn't not coached me, but if you hadn't made that suggestion, feel his presence, I might have come up with that concept myself, but I'm not convinced that I wouldn't have been, I think I used the word seduced before,
yes.
Like just surrendered to the grief with the idea, or almost it's such a powerful experience and such a powerful emotion, yes, that it's easy just to get lost in there, isn't it? And just to go, oh, well, this is it. I need to weep my way through it. Yes. And, there was that article recently that somebody put up and I can't remember what it was now, but that there are apparently two ways of dealing with grief, either one to stay with it, and the other one was to rise above it. I think that was it in its sort of simplest form. And I went, well, my experience is that there's something else too. There's another way in and through, but I'm not sure through is the right word either. It feels like it's that yin and yang thing, that we can get seduced to believe that grief and loss is all there is, but actually there's the other side of it that is presence.
Death does not really exist except as an experience. Experience is not reality. Circumstances and the senses are not reality. Senses and your experience are expressions of what you actually know. Not know up here. If that is in union with the heart, the space, then you can know anything. But you do have to look yourself, and you have to trust only this little light in the darkness. It's like Alice in Wonderland. You have to shrink your whole mind down till it becomes so laser-like, so one-pointed, so in the let-go, that what seems to be a door that's so tiny and so tight shut that you can't go through it, and all of a sudden it springs open, but only you, the life force in you, and your curiosity is a wonderful tool, only you can make the door spring open for you. And it isn't just a once and for all, but once you've got the crack open, it's like a hole in the dam. And then you keep visiting and visiting and visiting. And I tell you, I saw as when I was a child, it was like I had a hole in my mind, a hole in my head. And I used to never, what's this? And, you know, I'm not going into it now, but at some other point I will, how it happened. And I've had that hole. And every time I've explored, and every time you go back to that moment or something like that moment, it will, a little bit more of that ice flow will melt, a little bit more of that kind of carapace around the bubble that prevents us from experiencing the whole of life. Like there are people here who can experience so many different things, far viewing. Look at the things that people can do or experience. When one human being can experience something that you can be curious about, anyone can go there, because you are the life force. You are consciousness expressing in one beautiful work of art, which is your life and your body. But they are infinitely customizable. But we're doing it in little increments because we don't really know. But I tell you, it's getting faster. The fact that we can have this conversation and that you wrote that book and other people write them as well, but it's the simplicity and directness with which Francesca has done this and shared. That's so inviting. Because I know everybody here is doing it or is playing little bits, but you want to make the crack in the dam more, so that it's all available, so that whatever work of art you choose to express in this lifetime becomes available. We are the I am, we are everything, but it's the love when in form that makes it real in this dimension. And your loving Kahuna has expanded. You know, you tell the story of how it got more, and first a little feeling of joy, and then scratching, and if you keep on, not if, as you will keep on, you'll have more experiences. And then about loving other things or other people, and playing with our templates of seeing the little star in the heart, the light in everyone. They become real. That's how we are going to transform. No, how we are right now as consciousness engaged in transforming this existence. So there's no doom and gloom, really, because it's already happening. And all of you here are already today, because you're putting your attention on it, are going to get a huge, well, you are getting it now, a huge more. Oh, yes, let's be more in form. Loving being embodied. But the real us, the real, it cannot die, because it doesn't exist primarily in the expression. The expression is the body, is the embodiment. That's the way of expressing what you love. So love more and be curious. And I'm so excited about sharing like this with you, Francesca. And I know we're going to give more talks and more things. And well, it's just exciting. This is the I that is we, the I that seems to be we. And it seems to be different in every one of us. Like each finger is different, each fingerprint is different. But we are all that. And each individual magical choice that we make to choose in every moment, in every breath, and, you know, like going to a restaurant and deciding what you're going to eat, every moment and every breath, we're making little choices, conscious or unconscious. Am I going to start screaming because I've lost my keys? Or am I going to go to the heart and go, show me? And you do, you know. Oh, I'm so in love with what you've created, Francesca, that gives us the chance to speak about it like this. Now, did we want to see anything else? Did we discuss inviting other people to speak?
Has anybody got any questions having read the book, or any ideas or thoughts? I know for me, for instance, I very clearly began to wonder, is there any difference between life and death? Because the way that the transition was so smooth and so simple to your rush of energy once you reconnected with Kahuna once. And I've seen his grave on your hillside. I know where his cat suit is. So I'm not just imagining, it's just a feeling of that I've had right since I was a child, of there not really being any difference between life, force, and when you're supposedly dead, because the force is with you all the time. And so I began to think about reading the book. It raised a question, is it all one really? That's the... And of course, having heard you ask Kahuna so many times and having Kahuna bring such wonderful answers without fail, I think it's a question for Kahuna.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Nothing like putting, like, I feel really on the spot now. So the question is there any difference?
Is there any difference, Kahuna?
Because it's hard not to answer as me, because of course, to me, I can't stroke him, and I miss that a lot. Okay, so is there any difference? He just said, well, what do you think? And he's just laughing.
Yes, because it's what you choose to think or believe or know that makes it real. If you let go of any difference between being able to stroke him in your imagination or in how he used to be, and you open your awareness to know, I can bring him in his form, because you've started to do it. And when we let go of that, then there is actually no death. The door is open. And I will tell you, I remember long time ago, and I was in Spain was Easter week, and there was we were sitting, 2 or 3 of us in a room, and it was a battlefield, the Roman soldiers, a graveyard where they'd had this battle. And I saw the dead were all there. They weren't dead. They were lining up in the corners of the room. It was so strong. Since then, that was a real experience of it. And so I know that love with attention, with that amount of focus that you had, that's what makes it work. That makes it come into form. You have to love it. You have to absolutely love it. Otherwise, you can go on speaking about truth, but you've got to actually let the door open. And mind doesn't usually want the door to open, because it's a bit scary to the mind, because it means, oh, what I believed, what I think I am, oh, that's gone. Whoa, wow. So yeah, it's your love. That's what I want to acknowledge. It's that amount of that quality of laser-like focus and the willingness to open, to allow the doorway to blast through and to give that sense of huge joy, that's what makes it real. And I'm sure you'll be even more curious now to see what...
Definitely.
And it can be
Definitely.
with anything. Kahuna is one space, because Francesca loves him so much that it brings that living presence of truth into form.
The thing is, I mean, actually, I didn't experience him like this when he was in his catsuit.
No, but you did.
I didn't have these extraordinary conversations with him, you know, because I felt that there was a separation, because I could see him there and I was here. But now he's within me, or I'm within him, or we're inextricably connected. There's a whole different realm of communication that goes on. So I think for me is, next time I have a pet, which will be a dog, is it'll be very interesting if I then approach that dog in the same way that I connect with Kahuna now he's not in his catsuit. That will be really fascinating. Am I going to be sitting there with this little rescue dog having these sort of huge conversations? I don't know.
Yes, well, you will, whatever we choose to make as our focusing tool. But we do need, as we are informed, to have focusing tools. And one of the things that I explored when I was much younger was training to be an enlightenment master and learning specific ways of communicating that would enable people to have that direct experience of what you had, and learning to transmit that. So, or not doing it, but to allow it to happen. So what is very curious is saying, what is this thing or this quality or this state that we call the divine feminine? I'm looking at many reflections sitting here on the computer screen right now. So playing with that, when you communicate with anyone, is what we play with when we play with one of the things we're exploring with heart communication in some of the little groups. But you don't need to do a group. It's very much more powerful when you have one expressed focus or intention in a group, like you will know from the power of 8 that you do, and different things. These are all methods, beautiful ways of bringing that in. But you alone are enough, because these are all mirrors of what I am. I'm looking and knowingly right now sitting in my full presence, as well as in my archaeological presence. I'm looking at mirrors of what I am, the I am. And each one of you, and right now looking, can get a taste of that. And the more we play with it, when we were with another, what seems to be another, because there isn't any other, we go, oh, wow. And that can be with anyone. So yes, of course, when you get a dog and you love him, her, of course that will happen in your experience. It already is the case right now. But in your experience, when we speak about what will happen, it's only we're speaking about experience. We're not speaking about reality. Reality already is. But when we speak about it, when we discuss what we think of as future, it's an experience. So of course we speak about as will. But what you want is the isness. So isn't it magical, Francesca? Everybody?
Oh, it's beautiful. And thank you for that question, Vanessa.
Thank you. Yes.
I wonder if anybody else has got a question. Annie.
I have, and I'm sitting here with my cat. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yes.
She's come to join us, and she's looking very curious. And she's been here the whole time. She hasn't been with me all day, but she came to join us. Now my question is going back to the initial thing you had about changing the title round, changing the question round, because that's where I think the joy of this is. You know, if we can begin to see no separation between life and death, and use this experience to live and love our life. So I've lost something here. You know. Live and love our life, and that's all there is as far as I'm concerned, you know. So my question to you is, how's it made your life different so far?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I can even quantify it.
Just examples. I wasn't thinking of quantifying. Even that would be difficult. Little snippets.
I mean, it is extraordinary for me. Like I'm used to asking my intuition questions, but I often have to sort of go through a bit of a process, and I don't always trust necessarily the answer that comes through. But if I ask Kahuna something, it seems to come through instantly, and it's so not what was in my conscious thought that it you know, it's like, oh, it's just like, you know, asking Jeanette or, you know, somebody something, but like this immediate answer. And I remember a few months ago, I decided to talk to my grandfather, and he built this property here. And, you know, this is a place that I've been coming since I was born. And so I was just sitting in the bed that was his bed with a cup of tea, and I'm asking him a question about the property. And I'd never even contemplated seeing if I could connect with my grandfather before. No, I hadn't, you know, he died when I was, 10 or something. It never occurred to me. But I suddenly thought, I'm just going to ask him that question. And the answer was there instantly in a form that I would not have consciously thought of. So that I guess that's a way that it's changed massively, is to be able to ask those questions and get that sense of those connections to what seem to be others, but if they are all part of me, then gives me that a sense of the effortlessness of accessing wisdom in any shape or form. I mean, I haven't tested it out. You know, I haven't come up with a random question. I think Jeanette and I were talking earlier in our preliminary call about how often it's when we're really pushed into an extreme experience that we'll explore. For example, I can't remember how you said it, Jeanette, you probably will, but, you know, often I find that I'll let things carry on, you know, like, as long as life is quite comfortable, I don't do much in the way of growth. I just sort of go along for the ride. And then if things become really challenging, it's like, oh, okay, I better do something about that and shift my attention or refocus or create or whatever. So there haven't been that many demanding questions that have come up where I've got to ask that. But when I have, the answers are there so fast. And I just really want to thank you for that question, Annie, because I didn't know that before. So, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. And I've just got one more question to ask about that.
Before I say, can I just reframe your question a minute to give you an idea? What you can say is, what difference has it made to your experience of life? Because it won't have made any difference to her life. What she is life. So
okay, her experience of life.
Clear about the difference between what you actually are and what you have expressed so far in our storyline. You see, it's when you get that clarity in your mind when you ask, that will help, because then it also help you to understand or to express what you want to answer. There is a difference between your experience and what you are and what your life. Anyway, sorry I interrupt you, Annie. Go on.
Yeah, you have, and I've forgotten that. No, what I was going to say.
Again.
As you know, I often connect with ancestors.
Yes.
Part of what I do, and one time, I think my father must have been my father or partly me, whatever it is, trying to connect with me, because I wasn't asking to connect with him, but I ended up coming down to the kitchen one morning and finding a piece of paper with his writing on it. And I hadn't, honestly, I don't know how it got there. And after that, I did start talking to him more and just connecting. And now all I need to do is just call him and say, please, you know, and he's with me. But not only that, I can say, can I have a hug? And he will literally, I can feel his energy, I can feel his presence, I can feel his love. And the more I open, this is what I think I got from what you said, Jeanette, to Francesca, the more I open up my own love to him, the more present with me he is.
Yes, yes, that's absolute beautiful, beautifully expressed. That's exactly the secret. It's an open secret. We think that love comes from some other form, but it's not. It's what our incarnation, our embodiment transmits, whether it's dead or alive, or apparently dead or apparently, it doesn't make any difference. It's all in your imagination. You have to love it. And when you love it, everything becomes real. More real than you could possibly even imagine.
However, receiving that piece of paper with his writing was extraordinary.
Like Kahuna's scratch in Francesca's story.
Yeah. It was something completely, it wasn't anything relevant to my life now. It was something that he must have written a long time ago, but it was there.
And it appears in that moment.
Yeah.
It's the synchronicity of the moment. And when you really play with this in the moment, we've had so many experiences this last year, the ones we've played, of instant response. Just like Francesca's joy, instant demonstration of like scratches on the cupboard door or whatever it is, you know? And it's so
You know,
curious.
it's really interesting how easy it is to disregard something, because I love that. I love what you've just shared with us, Annie, and it's just reminded me of something that I completely forgot that only happened 2 or 3 days ago. So my grandfather built this property. He lived here then with his wife, my grandmother, and then my mum and my dad and I would come down here a lot. So this is the only property I know where our energies are really have been here for 60 years. And I was just walking through that hallway just like 2 days ago, and I just went, wow, it would be really great to feel you all, not just my grandfather, who I call Papa, but my grandmother, who I call Granny, and my dad, Yeah. And all of a sudden, it was like, whoa. Okay, I'm feeling you guys. And it was, but I'd forgotten it until you brought up that story then, Annie. And it's like, those, we can just close, can't we, so easily to something and just go, I don't know why, I didn't disregard it consciously. I just slipped my memory, and it's so nice to bring that back and go, wow, I did actually feel them all here. Yeah, thank you. Would anybody else like to share or ask a question? Yeah, Jenny.
Unmute yourself, I think.
Hi.
Yes.
Yes. It's more, I just got incredibly excited when Jeanette was talking, and I was finding myself frantically nodding and saying yes, yes, because it's so refreshing to be able to talk about things like this without having to put checks or balances on it. And the thing that I've grown more young and carefree and childlike as I've gone through the life cycle, because I was born into a family of elderly parents and exposed to illness and disability and death from a very, very young age. And my own mum, she passed the spirit, I just turned 21, and I nursed her through cancer. And at that time, just her loss was immense, because psychically I was incredibly shut down and been a very, very sensitive child. And then when I got to school, none of the other children spoke about communing with fairies or hearing their ancestors or anything. So I quickly learned the code of the playground. Now, jump forward 30 years when I discovered healing energy and started to open to my spirituality, which has always been there, and studying aromatherapy and connecting very, very closely with plants. and then working with healing energies and finding that really it's just so very, very fine, the division between the experience of life and the wholeness of our ancestors and our loved ones who've just diffused through the veil. And what is so beautiful, we've got many cat friends who've now gone back to their true form. And if I'm doing an animal communication and my human part of me, my head is thinking, well, I've not quite got that, I can just ask Parsley, our Norwegian forest cat, who quick as a flash, just boom, comes in with the answer or a song or a smell or a knowing. And it's just so easy to access. And it is just so lovely to be able to talk like this and not feel very, very odd or having to tone these aspects down. It is just so refreshing. Mm-hmm. And yes, the curious bit, I think when I go to that innocent part of me, which is the inquiring, childlike part of me, it's so easy to access everything. I'm just releasing into that. And it's taken me over 50 years to get there. But as I'm going through life, it's just feeling a lot easier. Mm-hmm. And questioning, what we are fed about women's experience, how little we should expect when we're traveling through perimenopause and beyond, and also looking into how allopathic medicine is looking at the aging process. And I'm thinking there is so much that we can turn around, and it's just such an exciting time to be alive. And I think that's all that I wanted to share. It just the whole richness. And I devoured the Kahuna book 2 afternoons sitting out in the hammock. It just spoke to my heart. It was absolutely beautiful. And I've passed it on to my husband. He's reading a lot in French. And I'm saying, you've got to read this. So it's next on his pile to read. It's amazing, just this great mystery. So I'm feeling very childlike and curious at this point in time, just to be part of the discussion here. I don't know, I'm sure other people can identify, but it's lovely to be totally uncensored and just to share. So thank you.
Absolutely beautiful, Jenny. So glad you joined us today.
Thank you, so am I.
It's the innocence and the spontaneity and the fact that there was a movie, I'm not sure about the movie, but the thing about Benjamin Button and getting younger and younger.
Yes.
I am exploring in this body now, and with anybody that's playing with me, what embodiment can come. And I am, that's almost my whole focus is on what is happening as the carapace of archaeology falls away, what reveals itself. And that's well, for this next months and years and whatever I'm doing, what I'm playing with, because it's so curious. We are so obviously not our archaeology.
Yes.
That we've gone into this kind of Quasimodo.
Yes.
We are not. We are that spontaneity, what I call the Kayala, or the impulse, or Kishori, which is the name of, it was given me by a master in India years ago. Means singer and dancer who will never grow old. And that's what the life force is. Kishori. That's what I call it, the Kahuna. That's why I love the Kahuna, because it's that K. It's that first sound that comes as the throat closes and opens. And it's so magical. If you open your minds to what your body, what embodiment can become in the time story. And we know what it is outside the time story, which is life, which this little bubble of life at the moment. But where's the walls of the bubble that we live in, apparently, we exist in, experience, gives us, as that starts to dissolve, then what can we become as we grow into being our true embodiment? I love it when you said you were getting younger.
Yes.
But all we need is to let go of that glass ceiling which says, menopause, I was getting old,
Yes.
and you're eventually going to die, and what does death mean? So be very curious about what death is. And I'm sure Kahuna is talking to you about what is death. I'm sure.
Yes.
So, and I will.
Surely will I ask.
Exciting.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Wow. What a fabulous conversation. I just love what you say, Jenny, about having a forum where it's okay. There is no censorship around this. And I get when I'm outside the Silver Tent or outside a kind of group like this, I completely forget. It starts to come out of my mouth and I think, no, I think I might need to stop that. I will put it back in again.
I just love Kahuna's kitten power, that how he's getting us all paired with his kitten power.
Yes.
He's listening to all this, cleaning his back leg, I love that look when they just really touch that back leg. That's brilliant. I can just see him do it and just look over his shoulder at us every now and again. Yeah, they're still talking.
I love kitten power. Kitten power is wonderful. It's another cake.
Yeah, there you go. Kahuna kitten power, not just any old kitten power.
No, it's because it's been made real by focus and love, and that's all it is. It's not just this is the reality. Oh yeah, well we can talk about that, but it's what each individualized embodiment has actually loved and defined. That's what defines it. That's what makes it real in this dimension. We know it exists. Everybody writes, not everybody, lots of people write about it. They're all great masters and mistresses, but it's what you choose in your innate power and wisdom and glory to bring in.
It just reminds me of something I just want to share very quickly about, love and how that creates. I remember, Jenny, when we had a conversation whenever it was, on Zoom, and I was in Siobhan's house, and I had the Kahuna painting with me. And hardly anybody had seen it at that point. And I showed it to you. And you just got this warmth of power. And I've just realized, I was like, that was a painting. So that was something that Lucy Jordan had created and poured her love into. And I don't know how it happened. Maybe you have something to share about that, Jeanette. But it just suddenly occurred to me, you were getting this warmth of power from something that wasn't even a photograph of him. It was a painting. Just amazing.
She could see. And it's that what I call light refracting on light, which is what is going on right now, this moment. And as we gather in more molecules or more little drops of water, you create a huge wave. And what's happening is the condensing or the coalescing of light, if you like, condensing. And as we can, that needs to be explored, what it actually means. But it does mean that as we gather beings together, like bees in a hive, then there is a new level of clarity that dawns. And that clarity becomes like an exponential curve. It's light refracting on light, is what I call it. It's the experience that you get in groups that are consciously playing with what we are speaking. And you just have to, even one person mentions it, and attention, because it's always drawn to the highest frequency. The attention, if mind will allow. And so gatherings like this, or similar, or some of the little groups that we're playing with the few of us here, and that creates new levels, and then different groups gather, and it goes on to infinity. We, in our minds, have at this moment no idea of what consciousness is moving to become. How does a seed or a little acorn know, except innately, in that it's going to become this magnificent oak tree? for example, it's a very tiny analogy. We have no idea. How does a little caterpillar that goes into being melted down and dissolved know that it's going to become this thing of beauty and lightness and glory? How does it know? These are tiny, not very good analogy. Well, best I can do. But you, each one of you, explores that and feel the desire to become, to really allow, without the mind saying glass ceiling, what? I'm curious about what I, or what the I that is we, can become. Because we all give birth to the earth, our own reality, our own story. And the more that someone who knows this speaks of it, or shares it, in whatever way she chooses to express, it doesn't have to be my way, your own, everyone is unique. But you express what you love in your painting, or Lucy did in her painting, because she loved what she was doing and she loved what she saw in Kahuna. So there's lots of love. So that painting is an encapsulation of what you love and the power and the beauty of his form. So that's why it happens like that. So all of us looking at each other and loving the life force that we see and the power that comes through each pair of eyes here is actually making a miracle right now, because there's sort of perception shifts going on all the time. And it's what do we choose, to go back to the glass ceiling of what circumstances and newspapers and whatever seem to say, or what we love. Love what you love. That's what Joseph Campbell said. Follow your bliss. Love what you love. Don't pay any attention to what anybody else says. Steffi, you want to say something, or you say goodbye? All right. Bye-bye. We have to go too, don't we? Bye-bye, Steffi.
I think it was bye-bye joy.
Yes. I thought it was Steffi waving. Oh, never mind. I don't know.
Might have been
It's all the same.
joy.
Anyway.
Wow, what a fantastic conversation. And thank you so much, Jeanette. And thank you so much to everyone for being here. I think we're probably going to complete on that. What do you think, Vanessa?
Can't hear you, Vanessa.
You're on
Vanessa,
mute.
unmute, darling.
There we go. I was I think we can all go away and play like kitten with Kahuna power.
Yes.
And then just see where it takes us. I'm going to play with that curiosity, that's for sure.
Yes.
I've got one question.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
hands out to any of us that are feeling younger and younger.
Yay!
Yay. On that note, let's go play.
Thank you so much, everybody. Lots and lots of love.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, man.